I've spent 21 years working as a paramedic. I've seen things most people only read about in newspapers: bodies twisted in cars, quiet last breaths, people whispering goodbyes that never make it out of their mouths. You learn to leave those things behind after every shift, or at least you try to. But there's one night I've never been able to forget. It happened on Halloween, a night when the line between life and death can feel unusually thin. That night, my partner, David, and I were on call. We'd been together on the job for almost 10 years. We could communicate with just a glance. Around 11:30 p.m., we were heading back from a routine pickup when a truck ran a red light. It struck our ambulance full force on the passenger side. I remember glass exploding inward and the sound of metal bending like it was screaming. When I came to, the world was sideways. My leg was pinned. David wasn't moving. He was slumped over the dashboard, and I knew right away he was gone. I told myself for months that I'd done everything I could, but guilt doesn't listen to reason. I kept thinking about how he had kids, how I was the one driving, how if I'd taken a different route, maybe we both would have gone home that night. I tried therapy. I tried church. I even switched to night shifts to avoid driving past that intersection. Still, every year, when Halloween came around, I'd feel this weight in my chest that wouldn't leave until sunrise. On the first anniversary of his death, I volunteered for the overnight shift. I thought if I could work through it, I could finally move on. I remember telling myself, it's just another night. But it wasn't. At 12:14 a.m., dispatch came through the radio. Static, then a voice. Unit 17, respond to a vehicle collision at mile 42. That call made me freeze. Mile 42 was where David had died. My hands went cold on the steering wheel. I thought maybe dispatch had mixed up the number. I confirmed it twice. Same coordinates. Same road. I took a deep breath, switched on the siren, and drove out there anyway. The night was unusually quiet. The highway stretched for miles, empty, with fog curling across the asphalt like it was hiding something. When I reached the scene, I slowed down. There were no lights, no other vehicles, nothing. Just the faint reflection of my headlights on broken glass scattered across the road. Then I saw it. About 20 feet ahead, a figure lying on the shoulder. I jumped out with my med bag and flashlight, expecting another drunk driving victim. But when the beam hit his face, I felt my stomach twist. It was David. Same uniform, same jacket, same cut on his cheek from the crash a year ago. At first, I told myself it was impossible, a hallucination brought on by exhaustion or guilt. But then I touched his wrist. There was warmth, a faint pulse. His chest moved with shallow, uneven breaths. I stepped back, shaking, trying to understand what I was looking at. His body had been cremated. I'd been at the funeral. Yet here he was, breathing under my hands. I did what I was trained to do. Training keeps you moving even when your mind is falling apart. I loaded him onto the stretcher, got him into the back of the ambulance, and hooked him up to the heart monitor. The screen flickered weakly, lines jumping like static on a dying TV. Then it steadied. The pattern wasn't normal. It was too rhythmic. The beeps came slow, deliberate, almost like Morse code. 3 short, 1 long, 1 short. I didn't recognize it right away. I just knew it was off. When I checked the display, I realized the line was forming letters. It spelled out one word: stop. The air in the ambulance felt heavy. I turned to look at David. His eyes were open now, completely open, but unfocused, like he was staring through me. His mouth moved just enough to let air pass through. I leaned closer, trying to hear. That's when I realized he was whispering my name, over and over, like he was practicing it. I pulled back and called dispatch, told them I was bringing in a critical patient. They asked for details, and I started to explain, but the radio crackled mid-sentence. Then a voice came through, calm and distant. It said, We already have him." I froze. It wasn't dispatch. It was David's voice. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it, that my mind was breaking under pressure. But when I looked up at the rearview mirror, I saw us both reflected clearly. Two figures in the back of the ambulance. One sitting, one lying down. Only, the figure sitting wasn't moving the way I was. It was lagging by a split second. Every blink, every turn of my head, it followed, but slightly behind. The road ahead seemed longer than it should have been. Every mile marker looked identical. The radio kept hissing, and in between the static, I could hear the sound of that night 1 year ago. The crash, the siren, my own voice shouting for help. The past was replaying itself through the speakers. I don't know how long I drove before I realized the hospital lights were gone. The road had turned into an endless stretch of black. I slammed the brakes, stumbled out, and found nothing. No sign of the crash site, no sound of traffic, just silence and my own heartbeat echoing in my ears. Then I heard the ambulance door close behind me. When I turned, the headlights were off. The back doors were sealed. Through the tinted glass, I could see movement, someone walking inside. Two figures, side by side. One of them waved. When I woke up, it was daylight. The ambulance was parked outside the hospital bay. My uniform was damp with sweat, and my watch said 7:02 a.m. There was no record of the call from dispatch. No file for mile 42. No one at the station remembered sending me there. 2 weeks later, the company installed new dash cameras in all the vehicles. Out of curiosity, maybe fear, I asked to see the footage from that night. I shouldn't have. The recording showed me stepping out of the ambulance, then coming back, alone. Inside, I was laughing, talking, animated, like someone was sitting right beside me. But there was no one there. Just empty seats and flashing lights reflecting off the glass. The last seconds of the video froze on my face. I was staring into the rearview mirror, smiling faintly, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then the video glitched, and for one frame, just one, there were two faces visible. Mine and David's. I quit the job that month. I sold the ambulance uniform and never drove night shifts again. But every Halloween, I still hear the radio buzz on my kitchen counter around midnight. Faint static, followed by a single message that cuts through the noise. Unit 17, respond to mile 42. Sometimes I think about answering, but then I remember the last thing the monitor spelled before it went dark. Stop. I used to think houses were just wood, nails, and quiet air. Empty until you filled them with noise and life. I used to think the creaks and thumps were just the house settling. But this house, it listened. I rented it last fall, an old Victorian place on the edge of a quiet town in Pennsylvania. It had that kind of beauty you only find in things that have survived too long. The landlord told me it was built in 1892 and had a lot of history. That's what people say when a house has seen things they don't want to explain. I was a writer. Not famous, not rich, but steady enough to afford a few quiet months alone. My wife had passed away 2 years earlier, and I thought solitude would help me focus. The town was small, the neighbors kind, and the price for the house was strangely cheap. When I asked why, the realtor paused and said, "Most people don't stay past the first month." She smiled afterward like it was a joke, but it wasn't. On my first day, I was unpacking boxes when an older man from across the street came over. He looked like he'd lived there his whole life. He said, "You'll be fine here, long as you don't talk to the walls after dark." I laughed because I thought he was just making small talk, the kind of strange humor country folks have. He didn't laugh back. He just nodded once, said good luck, and left. That night, I started writing again for the first time in months. I remember the quiet most of all. No traffic, no TV, no neighbors arguing. just the low tick of the clock and the wind against the siding. But every now and then, I'd hear something. Not a knock exactly, more like a short, careful tap from inside the walls. I told myself it was the house adjusting to the temperature. But by the third night, the tapping only happened when I spoke. It started small. When I read a sentence aloud, I'd hear a faint thump somewhere in the house. When I stopped talking, the sound stopped too. One night, just to test it, I said quietly, "If you can't hear me, knock once." The response came so fast that I dropped my coffee. One single knock, clear as day, right behind me in the living room wall. I froze. I told myself it was coincidence, that the pipes shifted or the foundation groaned at just the wrong moment. So I tried again, this time laughing to hide the tremble in my voice. "Okay, knock twice." 2 knocks. I stood there for almost a minute without breathing. Then I did what no rational man should have done. I kept talking. I asked questions. Simple ones at first. "Are you in the walls?" 1 knock. "Are you alive?" Silence. I thought I was imagining things. So I pulled out my phone and hit record. I left it on the table, asked the same questions again, and went to bed. The next morning, I listened back. My voice came through clearly, asking questions. After each one, faintly, just on the edge of hearing, was something else. Not knocks this time, but quiet whispers. Words layered under my own. It was like hearing someone breathe answers into my sentences. I couldn't make them out, but they were there. I replayed that recording for hours until I noticed something worse. The whispers stopped when I stopped speaking. But on the last 30 seconds of the clip, I hadn't said anything. Still, the whispering continued, answering questions I hadn't asked. A week passed. I told myself I'd imagined everything, but the house had other plans. I began noticing patterns. The floorboards only creaked when I entered certain rooms. The lights flickered in response to my words, and every morning the window blinds would shift slightly open, as if someone wanted me to see outside. I started talking to it again, partly out of habit, partly out of fear. If I said something out loud, I'd hear soft movements afterward, like a breath behind the drywall. Eventually, I stopped questioning it. It became routine. When you live alone long enough, you'll take company wherever you can find it. Then came the night it spoke back. I was sitting in the study, reading one of my wife's old journals, when I whispered her name, just once. From the other side of the room, a voice answered, "I'm here." It was her voice. I froze. I hadn't heard that sound in years, but I'd know it anywhere. Gentle, quiet, patient. My throat closed up. I said, "What did you say?" This time, it came from the opposite wall. "I miss you." I felt tears come before I even realized it. I kept talking, kept listening, as the house repeated pieces of things she used to say, private things no one else knew. The laughter, the pauses, even the sigh before saying my name. It was all perfect. Night after night, I stayed up, whispering to her through the walls. I recorded none of it. I didn't want proof that it was real or that it wasn't. But then, the voice began to ask questions, ones she never would have asked. "Do you love me enough to stay? Would you talk forever if I asked you to?" The night it asked, "Can I have your voice too?" I finally realized what I'd been speaking to wasn't her. The next morning, I started tearing the wallpaper in the study, convinced there had to be speakers or vents, something logical. But under every strip, I found words carved into the wood beneath. Dozens of them. Names, sentences, messages etched deep into the walls as if by fingernails. One phrase appeared over and over again. "Keep talking." I stepped back, and that's when I saw them. Handprints pressed into the paint, faint but fresh, like someone had leaned their whole body against the wall from inside. I stumbled into the hallway and found more carvings, more phrases. "Don't stop. Stay awake. Stay with me." The sound started again, the gentle knocking, the whispering, now louder. Every wall around me seemed to breathe. I shouted for it to stop, but the house answered back, mimicking my own words seconds after I said them. Every echo grew closer, more human, until it sounded like my own voice coming from every direction. The walls were answering faster now, overlapping me. I ran out the front door, but the moment I stepped outside, the knocking stopped. The silence hit harder than any noise. I looked back at the house. Every window was open. The curtains swayed, and for a brief second, I swear I heard my wife's voice again, whispering the same words I'd found carved in the walls. "Keep talking." When the police came, they said they found me sitting in the front yard, shaking and staring at the house. I don't remember much after that. They said I wouldn't stop mumbling, that I kept repeating a name that didn't exist in the property records. Inside, they found my phone still recording on the table. The file was over 6 hours long. It was mostly silence, with faint scratching in the background. But halfway through, another voice joined, calm, familiar, and far too close to the microphone. It said only 2 words, "Your turn." When they played it for me later, I told them it wasn't me. But the voice matched mine exactly. Same tone, same breath, everything. They never rented that house again. It still stands there, empty, though sometimes, on a still night, neighbors say they hear someone inside, talking softly to the walls. And if you get close enough to the porch, you can hear it answer back. You can tell a lot about a neighborhood by how it sounds at night. Some stay alive long after sunset. Dogs barking, porch lights glowing, kids shouting one last goodbye before being called inside. Others go quiet too soon. That kind of quiet carries a weight that presses on your chest. That's what I felt the night I realized I might be the last one left on my street. I've lived in the same cul-de-sac for 27 years. Every Halloween, I sit on my porch with a bowl of candy and watch the little ones come and go. I know every family by name. The Millers, the Taylors, the young couple at number 8 who just had their first baby. It's the kind of place where you wave at your mailman and people still borrow sugar. Last year, I decided not to go anywhere. My knees were bad, and my daughter lives 2 states away. I told her I'd be fine. "I'll keep the porch light on for the kids," I said. She laughed and told me not to scare them with my old security guard stories. By 6:30, the sun had dropped behind the houses. The street was glowing orange from the decorations. Pumpkins, fake cobwebs, plastic skeletons. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt, how quiet it had become over the years. A few groups of kids came early, their costumes rustling in the wind. Each hour, there were fewer footsteps on the sidewalk, fewer knocks. By 8 o'clock, the street had gone still. I sat there waiting for one last group. None came. I figured the kids were done for the night. But then, one by one, I noticed the houses across the street turning off their lights. First, the Millers, then the Taylors. Within 10 minutes, the whole row went dark. That wasn't unusual. Maybe everyone was done handing out candy. But what struck me was the timing. It was only a little after 8, and every house had gone black at the exact same moment. Even the street lights dimmed, like someone had turned a dial. My own porch light flickered once, but stayed on. The neighborhood was suddenly too quiet, not even the crickets. I stood up and leaned on the railing, staring across the road. The windows were dark, curtains drawn, but I thought I saw movement behind one of them, a shadow shifting, slow and steady. I called out, "Evening, Jim," to the man across from me. No answer. The shape stopped moving. I felt a little foolish, so I waved instead. Then, for a split second, I saw the curtain part. Someone was looking out. I could just make out a face, pale, expressionless. I raised my hand again, and that's when it hit me. The face looking back at me was mine. It only lasted a second before the curtain closed. I stayed frozen where I was, my heart pounding. I told myself it was the reflection of my own light, some trick of the glass. But then another window opened 2 houses down, and I saw it again. The same face, same expression. Me. I went inside, shut the door, and checked every lock. My house felt smaller somehow. The air was heavy and still. I turned off the TV to listen. That was when I noticed something even stranger. From the living room window, I could see the reflection of my front porch, but the light outside was off. I hadn't turned it off. I stepped out again, flashlight in hand. The bulb above the door was dead. Across the street, the houses stood like silhouettes. No sound, no movement. Then, faintly, I heard the wind pick up. But it wasn't wind. It was voices, my own voice, echoing back from the houses. Faint, delayed, but clear enough to recognize. Every time I whispered hello, I'd hear 10 of me whisper it back from every direction. I took a few steps down the driveway, shining the light across the yards. That's when I saw it. Through every front window, behind every curtain, shapes moving. People, or what looked like people, pacing back and forth. Each one moved the same way I did. I turned my head left, so did they. I lifted the flashlight. A dozen beams lifted at once. The realization settled in like ice. Those weren't people. Those were me. I stumbled back toward my porch, tripping over my own steps. I reached for my phone to call the police, but when I unlocked it, the group chat for my street, the one we used to share security alerts, had new messages. Every contact photo was mine. Every message said the same thing. Where are you? I ran inside, shut every curtain, and tried to calm down. I told myself it was a breakdown, old age, exhaustion, something explainable. I sat on the couch and took deep breaths, counting to 10 like the doctor once told me. That's when I heard the creak of my front steps. Someone was outside. I stood slowly, my knees shaking, and reached for the light switch. But when I flipped it, every light in the house turned on at once. Every bulb, every lamp, all flickering like strobe flashes. The walls glowed white for a moment, and I saw numbers painted faintly on every door. My house number. On all of them. I opened the curtain just a little. The streetlights had come back on, but what they showed made my stomach drop. Every house on the street now had the same number on the mailbox, mine. Every porch looked the same. My same chair, same pumpkins, same doormat. Then I saw movement. Dozens of people walking out of their houses, crossing their lawns. Every one of them looked exactly like me. Same clothes, same limp, same flashlight in hand. Some were smiling. Some were staring. I heard my voice, hundreds of them at once, whispering from the street. It's just Halloween. It has to end. I backed away from the window, grabbed my keys, and opened the door to run. But when I stepped out, I was standing on a completely different street. My house was there again, right in front of me. The same house, same mailbox, same flickering light. The next part wasn't recorded by me. The police report says they received a call from an open line around 10:12 p.m. A man's voice was repeating the same words, calm at first, then desperate. It's just Halloween. It has to end. When officers arrived, all they found was an empty street. No sound, no lights, no movement. They searched house after house. Every one of them had the same layout. Same furniture, same photographs, even the same calendar, stopped on October 31st. They found my flashlight lying in the road, still on. The camera on my phone had been recording for over an hour. The footage shows me walking down identical streets, turning corners that led back to the same spot, repeating that same phrase like I was trying to convince myself I was still real. The last frame cuts mid-step, my mouth open like I was about to say something. They never found me. Some nights, the new residents say they hear a knock at the door after midnight. 3 slow taps, then a voice saying, It's just Halloween. They've learned not to answer. Because if they do, the next morning, every house on that street looks exactly like theirs.